2 years ago, on her birthday, a friend shared something I will never forget. For her privacy, I'll call her Emma. Emma shared, "I'm incredibly blessed and thankful to have made it to 30 years old. I don't know much about my kidney donor except for his cause of death, and that he and I were the same age, 29. No one prepares you for the roller coaster of emotions, of pure excitement and guilt you feel when receiving an organ donation. Today on my birthday, all I can do is pray for him. I promise I will never forget what a gift you have given me." Organ donation is a tough topic. Not only is it immensely personal, but we have to talk about death, something very few of us like to think about, let alone discuss. But we need to have more of these conversations. The more we can discuss death and organ donation, the more likely we are to register as donors. And it's imperative that we have more donors. Over 115,000 people in America are on transplant wait lists. It is not a fun place to be. Your health is deteriorating while you're hoping for a donated organ. Every time the phone rings, there's a rush of adrenaline. Is there finally an organ for me? For thousands, time runs out before that phone call comes. What's shocking is that the likelihood of getting that phone call and receiving an organ transplant varies significantly by region. Organs are viable outside of the body for only a short window of time, so the organ donation network is set up regionally. When an organ becomes available, it's offered to the person at the top of the wait list in that region. This means people who live in areas with lots of donors have a much better chance at a new life than those who live in areas with few donors. Here in California, we have some of the best hospitals in the world, but it is not the best place if you need an organ transplant. Wait lists are some of the longest in the country. This is why Steve Jobs got his liver transplant in Tennessee. At the time, the wait list for a liver in Tennessee was under 6 months, while the national average was over a year, and some areas had wait lists over 3 years. People are allowed to relocate to capitalize on shorter wait lists, but very few people have the resources, time, or health to do so. The vast majority are on the wait list at the transplant center closest to them. In California and across the country, we simply don't have enough organs to meet the demand. Less than 54% of us residents here in California are registered as donors. This is below the national average and well below regions like Montana and Alaska, where over 80% of the population is registered. Underlying these geographical differences are differences by race and recency of immigration. Minorities and people who have emigrated recently tend to donate less frequently. So populations like California that are more heterogeneous tend to have lower donation rates. This is particularly concerning because to get a transplant, you not only have to get to the top of the wait list, but you have to match with the donated organ based on blood type, tissue biomarkers, and size. Many of these characteristics are correlated to race, so matches are much more likely to be found within our own respective ethnic and racial groups. Our geographic and racial communities need us. By being an organ donor, we have the opportunity to go on and save up to 8 people's lives. These people might be a burn victim who needs a skin transplant, a neighbor with type 1 diabetes who needs a kidney or pancreas, or a classmate with a severe viral infection who needs a new heart. One act of generosity can go a very long way. As you consider being a donor, I'd encourage you to have 2 conversations, one with yourself and one with your loved ones. The conversation with yourself, Make sure your questions are answered. Being an organ donor is an amazing opportunity, but it can be unnerving. And for many of us, the first time we consider being an organ donor is at the DMV of all places. Who feels introspective and charitable after waiting in line for 2 hours? When I was first sprung the question of being an organ donor at the DMV, I checked the box, no. At 17, I couldn't shake that doctors wouldn't work as hard to save me if they knew my organs could be used elsewhere. I had yet to get the reassurance that the priority of the healthcare system is to save our lives, whether we're donors or not, and that the doctors treating us don't even have access to the donor registry. That's all managed by an external nonprofit. My situation was probably not unique. We need to have these conversations with ourselves on our own time when we can get the reassurances we need. We can then go and register at the DMV or online at organdonor.gov. I'm guessing many of you are wondering, why have this personal conversation now? I'm young and don't plan to die anytime soon. I surely hope that's the case for all of us in the room. But I'd argue that it's a lot easier to think about mortality now when it feels a long way off and to get comfortable with our decisions. Being young gave me the opportunity to reconsider my initial no, and as of last year, makes me a proud yes. The second conversation is probably the tougher one, the conversation with our significant others and families. If we're ever in a situation where our organs can be donated, we'll be dying, and our families will be having one of the toughest days of their lives. We can make this a little bit easier on them by clarifying our desires in advance. This is incredibly important. Hundreds of registered donors don't get the opportunity to donate their organs because their families insist otherwise at the hospital. We need to prepare them to make the decisions we want. Similarly, let's ask them what they want for themselves. Let's ask them what questions they have and help them answer them, and make sure we are prepared to facilitate their wishes if needed. I find organ donation one of the most humbling and inspiring statements of human kindness. One person giving the gift of life to others, like Emma. I hope that we all have long and healthy lives, but unpredictable situations happen. Have the conversation with yourself. Have the conversation with your loved ones. And let's step up and be there for our communities. Thank you.